"Excuse me, are you Mr. Daniel?" He doesn't answer at first. He just blinks at the voice, unsure whether it's real or a memory. I think you used to know my grandma," the little girl says, her voice soft and steady. "She said you were a music teacher, before you disappeared." The man's hands tremble slightly, clutching a damp notebook to his chest. The girl holds out a crayon drawing of a man with a guitar, beneath the words, "Still here." And just like that, the silence that had wrapped itself around his soul for over a decade began to crack. Before we dive deep into this emotional journey, take a second to subscribe to SoulTwist Stories. Here, we don't just tell stories. We awaken memories, stir hearts, and remind you that even in the darkest corners, a little twist of kindness can change everything. Stay with us till the end, because this is one of those stories that might just change the way you see people forever. His name was Daniel Gray. Before the world forgot him, before the streets claimed him, he was someone people admired. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. But in the quiet town of Red Hollow, he was known as Mr. Gray, the Music Man. Daniel taught music at Red Hollow Middle School. Every kid in town either sang in his choir or wished they could. He had a soft voice, the kind that didn't shout to be heard. The kind that made kids sit up and listen, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Every Tuesday, Daniel stayed after school to teach anyone who couldn't afford private lessons. Every winter concert, he wrote a custom song for the graduating class. And every Friday evening, he returned home to a warm house filled with love, and his wife, Mariah. Mariah was a florist. She ran a little shop called Bloom and Hollow on Main Street. Together, they were like a melody, gentle, steady, in sync. They didn't have children yet, though they tried. But the town would say, their love could fill a room. Daniel would often walk to Mariah's shop after school, holding hands, humming unfinished songs, dreaming of someday. That someday never came. One night, just after their 5th wedding anniversary, Mariah closed her shop a little late. It was raining. Her car had a flat tire. She called Daniel. He was still at school, cleaning up instruments. "I'll be there in 10, he told her. But 10 minutes wasn't fast enough. A drunk driver ran a red light. Mariah died on the scene. When Daniel arrived, there were police, flashing lights, a shoe on the pavement, and her scarf. That's all he saw before he dropped to his knees in the rain and screamed her name into the night. After Mariah died, something in Daniel broke. But quietly. Not in the way that people scream or shatter things. No, Daniel broke the way a music box stops playing. Just one note at a time. Until there's only silence left. At first, he tried to hold it together. He showed up at school. He taught his classes. He even kept writing songs. But his smile never reached his eyes anymore. The students noticed. So did the staff. But no one knew what to do with a grieving man who didn't cry, just faded. His house, once full of music and flowers, began to fall silent. The piano gathered dust. The lights stayed off longer. Meals went uneaten. And late at night, when the town was asleep, Daniel started visiting the bottle more than the piano. Just one glass of wine, then 2, then something stronger. It was easier than talking, easier than answering questions, easier than remembering what day it was without her. He stopped showing up to staff meetings, missed a school concert. When he did come in, he looked like a man who forgot what sleep was. Principal Harlow, a kind woman who had taught alongside Daniel for years, tried to help. She offered him time off, counseling, even a leave of absence with pay. But Daniel didn't want to talk to a stranger, didn't want pity. He wanted Mariah, and no one could bring her back. The final straw came during a parent-teacher night. Daniel showed up late, disheveled, smelling like the bottle he thought he'd hidden. A parent complained. By Monday, he was put on indefinite leave. He didn't fight it. He just packed up the music sheets from his desk, took the plant Mariah had left on the window, and walked out of Red Hollow Middle School forever. With no income and no family close by, bills piled up. Mariah's medical debts hadn't all been paid. His savings thinned like the light through his bedroom curtains. Within 6 months, Daniel had to sell their home. The same home where they had danced barefoot in the kitchen, where he had written lullabies for the children they never had, where he kissed her forehead every night before bed. Gone. He tried staying with an old friend for a while, James, a former bandmate. But grief changes people. Daniel wasn't the same. He barely spoke, drank more. One night, after a long silence and an even longer bottle, James said gently, "I don't think I can help you anymore, man." And Daniel just nodded. He packed what little he had left into a duffel bag, took Mariah's scarf, and left. That night, he found a quiet alley behind Bloom and Hollow, Mariah's old flower shop. It had been closed since her death. But Daniel sat on the back steps and whispered, "I don't know where else to go." That was the first night of his homelessness. He never planned to stay on the streets. But one night became two. Two became weeks. Weeks bled into months. And eventually, years. 10 of them to be exact. Red Hollow was a small town. But even in small towns, it's easy to go unseen. Especially when people don't want to see you. For the first year, Daniel still tried to be someone. He sat near the church, helping old Miss Lottie carry her groceries. He cleaned the alley behind the bakery to earn a stale loaf of bread. He even shaved, once in a while. But there were whispers. Didn't he used to teach? Poor man. Shame about his wife. And eventually, don't give him money. He'll just drink it. So people stopped offering. By year 2, Daniel stopped speaking altogether. He communicated with nods, with quiet thanks, with eyes that carried too many stories and no one to tell them to. He began moving between sleeping spots, the bus stop on rainy nights, the library stairs when it was warm, and behind the old flower shop when he wanted to remember her. But there was one thing he never let go of. His notebook. The leather was cracked. The pages were wrinkled from rain. But inside were over 300 pages, filled with his life. Songs he'd written and never performed. Letters he wrote to Mariah, almost daily. Sketches of guitars he'd fix if he ever had tools. Quotes he remembered from students, and from her. "It was the only proof I was still me," Daniel once said. "Even when I didn't feel like I was." Hunger became normal. So did the smell of garbage. The ache in his back from sleeping on bricks. The flinch every time a siren passed too close. Once, he was beaten by a group of teens who recorded it for a dare. Another time, someone urinated on his sleeping bag, laughing as they did it. No one stopped them. But still, Daniel didn't yell. He didn't hit back. He just turned another page in his notebook and wrote, "Don't let them take your song." On particularly cold nights, he'd sit by the church doors and listen to the choir. And sometimes, he'd hum along, just under his breath. A quiet harmony no one else could hear. By year 7, Daniel had become a fixture. A statue in the background of the town. Children whispered about him. They say he was a ghost, or a singer, or both. Adults looked away when they passed. Some gave coins. Most gave nothing. But then, in year 10, something changed. Or rather, someone changed everything. It was a gray autumn day. Daniel had just gotten chased off a sidewalk for sleeping too close to a store. He was tired, wet, hungry. He sat under the old tree in Ashford Park, near the swing set that had rusted over. That's when he saw the pink boots. She was small, no older than 7. Brown curls tucked beneath a knitted purple hat. A Hello Kitty backpack slung over her shoulder. She walked up slowly. No fear. No hesitation. Just kindness. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Daniel?" At first, he thought he was dreaming. No one had called him that in a decade. "My grandma said you used to be her favorite teacher. She played me your tape, the one with the sad song." Daniel blinked. The tape. That old demo Mariah had recorded for him before she passed? "I found it in her attic," the girl said. "She said you disappeared. But I told her." Maybe you were just waiting to be found. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a drawing. A man with a guitar, standing under a tree. The same tree they stood under now. I drew this, she smiled. It's you. Right. His throat tightened. No one had seen him in 10 years. But this little girl, this child with crayons and wide eyes, had looked straight into the forgotten corners of his soul. And somehow, she knew. She came back the next Saturday. Same pink boots. Same purple hat. But this time, she had cookies. Mom made these, she said, placing them gently on the bench beside him. She said you used to bring flowers to my grandma at school. Daniel stared at the small Ziploc bag like it was made of gold. Not because he was hungry, but because it had been years since someone brought something for him without asking for anything in return. Her name was Lila Grace Holloway. 7 years old. Curious. Stubborn in a gentle way. The kind of child who saw magic in places grown-ups had forgotten to look. Every Saturday after that first meeting, she came back. Sometimes she brought stories. Sometimes she brought crayons. Once, she brought her ukulele. And always, she brought a new drawing. This one's you teaching again, she'd say. And this one's your wife, picking flowers in heaven. And this one is the song you haven't written yet. The park bench beneath the old tree became their meeting place. Daniel never asked her to come, but every time she did, he stayed a little longer in that space. A little more present. A little more human. Why do you keep coming here? He asked one day, not meeting her eyes. Because, she said without hesitation, you look like someone who's still waiting for something. And I'm really good at waiting. He couldn't help it. His lips curled, just slightly. His first smile in nearly 10 years. Lila began asking him questions. Do you still sing? What's your favorite instrument? What do the stars sound like to you? Some days he didn't answer. But over time, the words began to return. One here, one there, then sentences, then a story. One afternoon, she brought a blank notebook. For you, she said. The other one's full, right? How do you know about that? He asked. Because I see you write in it when you think I'm not looking. He was stunned. No one had seen that notebook in years. But she had. You know, she whispered one day, sitting cross-legged in front of him. Everyone calls you the quiet man. But I don't think you're quiet. I think you're just waiting for the right person to listen. And then, something happened that hadn't in over a decade. Daniel sang. It was low, soft, a melody he'd written in the notebook, a lullaby he once made for a baby he never got to meet. Lila leaned forward, her eyes wide. When he stopped, she clapped her little hands and said, Told you your voice still works. What Daniel didn't know was that someone else had heard him too. A young man, one of the soup kitchen volunteers, had seen Daniel with Lila often, but never heard him speak. That day, hidden behind a tree, he filmed a short clip of the man singing. It was just 43 seconds long. But it would soon echo across the internet like a forgotten melody finally remembered. The video was shaky. Just a man in rags, sitting beneath a tree, eyes half closed, voice low and raw. But there was something about it. Something pure. In just 43 seconds, Daniel's soul leaked through the screen. The caption read, I think I just heard a broken angel singing in the park. This is Daniel. If you know him, help me help him. It was uploaded on a Tuesday. By Friday, it had over 80,000 views. By the following week, 500,000. Comments poured in. Who is this man? I can feel the pain in his voice. I'm crying and I don't even know why. A local news station picked it up. Homeless man with angelic voice stuns the internet. Do you know Daniel Gray? Lila's mom was the first to recognize him. That's the man Lila's been visiting every week. She was shocked, but not angry, because in her daughter's eyes, this man was not a threat. He was a secret waiting to be known. The video eventually reached someone else too. A man sitting in a studio 2 towns over. His name was Eli Grant, Daniel's former student. Once a shy kid with a stutter who found his confidence in Mr. Gray's choir. Now, a sound engineer and co-owner of a rising local music label. Eli couldn't believe it. That's Mr. Gray. He taught me to breathe before I speak. He told me my voice mattered when no one else did. He replayed the video over and over. And then he picked up the phone. He called the soup kitchen in Red Hollow, asked about Daniel, then drove there the next morning. When Eli arrived at Ashford Park, Daniel was sitting on the same bench, notebook in hand, Lila drawing beside him. And for a moment, Eli just stood there, watching, remembering, feeling something sacred. "Mr. Gray," he finally said. Daniel looked up slowly. The man before him was older, broader, but the eyes were familiar. Eli. And for the first time in years, Daniel hugged someone. They sat together for hours that day. Eli listened, didn't interrupt, let the silence stretch, just the way Daniel used to in class. Then he said, "I know this is a lot, but people are listening to you again. We can do something with this. We can bring you back." Daniel laughed. A soft, hoarse chuckle. "Back to what?" "Back to you," Eli said. "Even if you're not the same. Even if you're still healing. You taught us how to find our voice. Now it's your turn." That night, Eli and his team recorded Daniel at the studio. Lila sat in the corner, swinging her legs, whispering encouragement. Daniel recorded a new version of the song Lila first heard him hum. "Still here, still me. One take. No edits. Just truth." The release went live with a simple title. "A Voice Found in the Shadows." The song was raw. No auto-tune. No beat drops. No fancy visuals. Just one man, singing in a whisper, with every note soaked in years of pain and patience. "Still here, still me. You can't take the music out of me." The world stopped scrolling, and for once, they listened. In the first 24 hours, the track reached 90,000 plays on local streaming platforms. Comments flooded in from people who had never heard of Daniel Gray, but suddenly felt like they knew him. "This healed something I didn't know was broken. I cried from the first note to the last. This man is proof that pain can become art." Interviews followed, podcast features, online shows. But Daniel didn't want the spotlight. He only said yes if Lila could come too. In every interview, he made one thing clear. "I didn't come back because I wanted to. I came back because a little girl with pink boots reminded me I was still alive." Soon after, a local shelter invited Daniel to speak. Not as a singer, not as a homeless man, but as someone who survived silence. The auditorium was filled with people who had slept on park benches just like he had. He walked up to the mic, hands trembling, voice soft. "I'm not here to tell you how to escape the street," he said. "I'm just here to tell you that being invisible doesn't mean you don't exist. You matter, even if no one tells you that today." He spoke at 3 shelters that month, then 5 more the next. He wasn't just singing anymore. He was teaching again, not music, but something deeper. He taught how to hold onto your soul when the world tries to steal it. Eli helped him set up a foundation, Still Here Project, music therapy and workshops for the unhoused. The first session was held in an abandoned community center. 15 people showed up. They brought nothing but themselves. By the end of the day, every one of them had written a song. And Lila? She became the heart of it all. Daniel always introduced her as the reason I found my voice again. One evening, during a radio interview, the host asked Lila, "Why did you help him?" She answered like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Because people aren't trash. Just because someone's on the ground doesn't mean they belong there forever." Daniel smiled as she said it. And in that moment, surrounded by microphones and cameras and 1,000 new beginnings, he realized, His comeback wasn't just a second chance. It was the start of a completely new song. The room was packed. Not with celebrities, not with flashing lights or screaming fans, but with people who knew what it felt like to be forgotten, to be silenced, to lose everything, and still have a heartbeat. It was the first Still Here Project tribute concert, held at the local community theater, once run down, now lit with soft golden lights. Every performer had once been homeless. Every lyric, every note, was written from pain turned into purpose. Daniel walked onto the stage slowly, no longer hunched, no longer hiding, just present. In one hand, he held his old, worn-out notebook. In the other, a framed crayon drawing. It was Lila's first drawing, the one she gave him under the tree, the one that started it all. A man with a guitar. 3 little words. Still here. The crowd fell silent. Lila sat in the front row, legs swinging, hair braided with pink ribbons. Daniel looked at her, then out at the sea of faces. And he said, "1 year ago, I didn't think I'd be alive today. I didn't think I'd speak again, or sing, or feel. But a little girl with a purple hat reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That we are not finished just because we're broken." The audience was still. Then, the first quiet strum of his guitar. A new song. One he wrote just for that night. They said I was lost, but I was just quiet. They said I was done, but I was still trying. You heard my silence, and answered with grace. I found my name, in your crayon frame. As the last note faded, Lila stood up. She held up a new drawing. It was of a tree, a bench, and 2 figures sitting side by side. Underneath, a simple line in big pink letters. Even quiet people have loud stories. The crowd rose to their feet. Not with screams, but with tears, with hugs, with hands on hearts, because they knew they had just witnessed a soul come back to life. If this story touched your heart, bestie, don't scroll away just yet. Somewhere out there, there's a Daniel. And maybe, you're someone's Lila. Never underestimate the power of kindness, of presence, of simply not walking away. At SoulTwist Stories, we tell the stories that don't always make headlines, but leave footprints on the soul. Drop a comment below and tell us, who changed your life with something small? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it meant something to you. Until next time, keep listening, keep feeling, and keep telling the stories that matter.